After a major disaster, where the grid may be down for a prolonged period of time, how would you power electrical devices that may be necessary for survival? In this video, we're going to take a look at traditional gas generators versus solar generators, so stick around. Hey YouTube, welcome to City Prepping, where we discuss emergency preparedness, self-sustainability, and we do gear reviews like we'll do in this video. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing, and if you enjoy the video, click on the like button below. Enjoy the video. If there were a major disaster, whether man-made like civil unrest, or a more likely scenario like Mother Nature unleashing a hurricane or earthquake on your regional area, how would you power devices that may be essential for survival, like refrigeration, or just everyday things that we become reliant upon, like cell phones for communication? With the hurricane season right around the corner for the area around the Gulf of Mexico, preparing for the inevitable in that region will be critical. For the longest time, the go-to solution after disasters has been gas generators to provide backup power. But over the last few years, with advances in technology and renewable energy, new options have come to the market which can harness solar or wind power, which are strong contenders. Before we get into comparing the two options, let me start out by saying that I'm basing my points to consider on systems that are small enough to be moved should the situation require it, and are within the range of affordability of most people. I realize that gas generators and renewable energy systems can also be very small to extremely large. But in this video, we're going to look at a couple of options on the market that we'll view through the following 6 considerations, with the first point being mobility. Number 2, will it provide enough power? Number 3, how easy is it to store and maintain? Number 4, OPSEC. Number 5, cost of device. And number 6, power source to operate the generator. I'm purposefully going to cover this one last because I think after we go through all the items to discuss comparing the two options, this one, in my opinion, is one of the most significant things to consider. By the way, in this video, we'll compare the Energy Kodiak solar generator against the Honda EU 2009. While they're not exactly the same as far as capabilities and output, they're close enough for the standards we'll use. If at any time you're interested in checking out these products, I'll provide a link in the description below to both of them, along with a 20% off coupon for the solar generator we cover if you're interested in picking up one of these. So let's jump into the first point to consider, mobility. Can I move this unit around easily enough if things get worse, requiring me to flee to a new location? Having mobility is critical during emergencies. Things don't always work according to plan, and you may not have the option to stay in place to ride things out. If that's the case, is this option something you can easily place in your vehicle? So how do these two stack up against each other with regards to mobility? With our solar generator, we're looking at about 20 pounds for the generator itself and the additional weight of solar panels or a wind turbine. With this particular generator, there's no proprietary setup for the power input, meaning you can use common plugins from most solar panels to power the device. I've got 5 50-watt panels that add an additional 20 pounds, they're roughly about 4 pounds each, to the overall weight. You can add up to 600 watts of incoming power through solar or wind on this unit, so it's really up to you how much additional weight you want to add to your setup. With the gas generator, on the other hand, the weight of this particular Honda generator itself is around 46 pounds, plus any fuel you want to carry. The unit can hold up to about 1 gallon of fuel, which will add another 6 pounds to the overall weight. It's up to you as to how much fuel you want to carry, but a gallon of gas will power this generator for about 4 hours at the rated load and around 9.6 hours at 1/4 load. So who is the winner in this round? When it comes down to just mobility and weight, they're very close. When it comes to how compact they are, I'd say the gas generator is a little more compact, as the solar generator will need panels. But there are options on the market for solar panels that can be made compact, like the Power Film Solar, which provides about 120 watts of power at just 6 pounds. On this round, I'd say the two options are very close, based mostly on size and weight, so I'll mark this round as a tie between the options, giving them both a point. Point number 2, can it provide enough power? Can it realistically power and run the necessary devices I'll need for survival? Really, the answer is specific to each individual. You may be an individual that has very few needs, or a large family that will need a lot of power, or you may have special medical conditions requiring you to have large amounts of standby electricity. You can create a list of what specific things you must have. For example, there are things that would be very important to me and my family, like a refrigerator. I've got a small 4.4 cubic refrigerator in my patio that could get us through for a while. It wouldn't draw much power in the process. While something this small may be laughable, with some proper foresight and preparation, it could be feasible for my family. CPAP machine. Do you rely on this to properly sleep at night? Electronics. Cell phones, ham radios, walkie-talkies that need to be charged. Box fans. You may live in a very hot environment and a good fan may make all the difference. Space heater. If you live in a very cold environment, having the ability to power a small space heater could keep you and your family comfortable or even alive depending on how cold your area gets in the middle of the winter. The list could go on and the demand for electricity would increase as well. Personally, I think having a small refrigerator, being able to power my mobile phones and ham radios and a small box fan would be enough for me and my personal environment for a few weeks or even a month. After having lived in Afghanistan in 2003, I learned how to cut back to the basics. While it wasn't always comfortable, it was doable. An easy call to action for you after this video is to sit down and write out the necessary equipment you want to power and determine if a solar or gas generator will be the best option for you. So who's the winner on this point? It's hard to declare a hands-down winner as each individual's needs are different. If I were to base it on whether I have a lot of power demands for a sustained period of time, the gas generator will probably be your best bet for sheer power. But again, this is relative to your needs. If I were to have a very large reservoir of fuel, I'd probably go with a gas generator. But if I knew that I wouldn't have a lot of electricity demands, I'd prefer the portable solar generator option. So how easy is it to store and maintain these two systems? Well, let's first discuss whether you're the type of person that will maintain your equipment. Gas generators, they need more attention, while solar generators, not so much. You also have to consider if the situation came around that I need to use it, will there be a problem if I haven't maintained it? With gas generators, they have to be maintained and occasionally run. You'll need to change the oil, clean out the carburetors, change spark plugs, etc. There's moving parts that can and inevitably will break down, but can be repaired if there's someone around with the right skills and/or parts. If you live in an area like the Gulf of Mexico and the hurricane season is right around the corner, now is a good time to make sure your gas generator is ready. Plus, we have to consider that if your gasoline is not rotated, it simply will not store long term, something we'll discuss when we get to point 6 regarding power source. With the solar generator, you basically get a big lithium battery that is stored fully charged and occasionally used and recharged like every 3 months. You should be fine. This particular unit, the Energy Kodiak solar generator, is rated up to 2,000 charge cycles or 10 years. These don't have moving parts like a gas generator and are far more basic in regards to maintenance while being stored. Plus, as mentioned in the previous point, you don't have to worry about storing a power source because as long as you have sun or wind available, you're set. Now, between the two, I'd mark the solar generator as a winner simply because it's more low maintenance, it can sit for longer periods of time, and its fuel source doesn't have a finite lifespan like gasoline. OPSEC. If you're not familiar with the term OPSEC, it simply refers to operational security. If you click on the card at the top of your video, you can watch a video I did explain this a bit more. Now, in regards to our discussion, OPSEC means will people know you have a power source when they do not have one? Why does this matter? The question comes up a lot in the prepper community, most often circling around the question of personal security for both you and your family if there's a prolonged grid down scenario where resources may become scarce and people get desperate. When people get desperate, the safety of you and your family can be jeopardized. The first consideration is in regards to noise. Will others in my general vicinity be aware that I have the source of power? The Honda gas generator runs between 53 and 59 decibels depending on load. Now, how loud is that? It's roughly the equivalent of people having a conversation in a restaurant or an air conditioning unit at about 100 feet away. If you live in a tight urban or suburban environment, that would be loud enough to tip someone off that you're running a generator. With this solar generator, it's 100% quiet. There's no noise whatsoever. Odor. With gas generators, you'll have a very noticeable odor in your general vicinity, alerting people to its operation. Solar generators, there are no odors. Visual. Will others see it when operating? With gas, you have to run it outside to prevent fumes from coming in your home and killing you. With solar, you simply need to set up panels, which depending on your home setup, people may or may not see this. When it comes to OPSEC, a solar generator is a clear winner when it comes to sound and smell, but would be roughly about the same when it comes to whether people can see your setup, depending on where your panels are placed. On this round, I give the point to solar. Now, in point number 5, let's talk about the cost of the devices. With a gas generator, your initial upfront cost is cheaper. Something like this Honda will roughly set you back about $1,000. There's obviously other options on the market which are cheaper, but may not be as reliable, efficient, or as quiet. But when you factor in the cost of fuel and maintenance costs, gas generators may not be as cheap over the long term. With gas currently approaching $4 per gallon here in California where I live, running 100 gallons through this device would set you back about $400. Now, regarding solar, the upfront cost is not as cheap as gas. This particular unit with the coupon code City Prepping will cost you $1,500 plus another $400 to $800 for solar panels or a wind turbine, depending on what you purchase. Obviously, there are do-it-yourself videos on YouTube that show you how to make your own portable solar generator. And if you got the technical skills to pull this off, then by all means go for it. What I do appreciate about the Kodiak and other portable solar generators on the market like the Goal Zero Yeti is that they're pre-made, they're typically more durable, and they're engineered to be compact. The do-it-yourself videos I've seen online are not as compact, but obviously they're considerably cheaper. Again, that's something you may want to consider. So who wins this round? When it comes to the upfront cost of the unit, gas generators are the clear winner. Between the Honda EU2000i and the Kodiak with solar panels as seen here, the gas generator is roughly about one-half the upfront cost. But again, remember, this is upfront, not long-term. When you consider long-term, if you use gas generators frequently, the cost over time will be close to or actually more for a gas generator. In this last point, number 6, we'll talk about the power source. How available is a fuel source to power this device? Now, I saved this point for last on purpose. Why? After everything else we've discussed in the previous points, this one's a really big selling point for me personally. If you have the ability to store large amounts of gasoline at your home, which most people cannot do, and if not done correctly could be very dangerous, maybe this point is not much of a deal breaker for you. But for me, I don't like the idea that I'm limited to a finite fuel source. With gasoline, your power source, it's finite and limited. After reading numerous stories of what people had to endure during the hurricane season of 2017, one of the most common comments I read was people having a hard time securing gas when the pumps ran out and the fuel delivery trucks were not able to reach their area to operate their gas generators. Even if you can store large amounts at home, gasoline has to be rotated or at least properly treated with fuel stabilizer. You have to be cautious storing it to ensure it's properly ventilated. There's a lot of special considerations when thinking about long-term gas storage that you just don't have to deal with when it comes to a device run by renewable energy. With the Kodiak solar generator, you've got an unlimited amount of fuel as long as there is sunshine or wind if you're using a wind turbine. Obviously, these units can be problematic if there's no wind or sun, but as a side note about this specific unit, you can extend the storage capabilities by adding any 12-volt lead-acid or AGM deep cycle battery. So in theory, as long as your input is greater than your demands on the unit, you could effectively store up a lot of power with additional batteries being added on should you experience days with little sun or rain. In a prolonged grid down scenario, you could scavenge batteries from RVs, boats, and vehicles to extend out your storage capabilities. In a sense, it's like adding more gas canisters for your gas generator. For me, this last point is the most critical point for me personally. If I had to bug out with a gas generator, it will only operate depending on how much fuel I can pack in my vehicle or scavenge. But with a generator that runs on renewable energy, in this case it's solar or wind, I've got unlimited power, and that gives me peace of mind.
So there you have it. Hopefully this information will give you a better idea as to which system you want to work with long-term for your potential grid down scenarios. They both have their strengths and weaknesses. The biggest advantage I believe that gas generators have is that you have on-demand power. As long as you have a fuel source, you can just put the fuel in and you're good to go, you're ready. As far as the solar option, or wind turbine, depending on what you hook up to it, there's definitely a little foresight that's required in order to think about your environment, making sure that you're in a place where you can either get wind or you can get solar. Fortunately for me, living in Southern California, it's not really a big issue getting solar. We've got plenty of sun down here. So for me, I think when I look at the two options, the option to go renewable energy or with solar or wind turbine, whatever I hook up to it, for me is the more popular or the approach I prefer more, simply because you've got with gasoline, you've got a finite fuel source. With solar, you've got an infinite fuel source as long as you've got sun. And so if there was a grid down scenario, again, based on all the criteria that we're looking at, for me, the Kodiak Energy or any type of solar generator is a clear winner to me. I'd love to hear your feedback, what your thoughts are, which one you think is better, which one would you prefer. Again, if you enjoy this video, please click on the like button, subscribe, and share on social media. As always, be safe out there.